Yes.
Welcome to Rotary. We're glad to see you guys here. You're joining us at Zoom. We appreciate you joining. We're going to have the national anthem and the pledge, and we also are happy to see Mr. Lester back with us.
Glad to be back, and you better sing. Here we go.
Oh, sing when you see by the dawn's early light, or so proudly we declare, at the twilight's last gleam, there's no stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight. For the land which we lost was so gallantly slain, and the rockets straight there, the first beginning, came through the night, that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave? Oh, the land of the free, and the home of the brave.
Join me in the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. Greg is going to lead us in prayer.
Pray with me, please. Lord, we thank you for your many blessings, for this food here today, that it may strengthen our bodies. Help this club as we seek to serve our fellow man. Pray that you be in with our brothers and sisters in the Ukraine, Lord. We just pray for your help there. In Christ's name, amen.
Amen. Thank you, Greg. Terry Duffy, family of Rotary.
Good morning. I hope everybody's having a great Monday. So far, so good. Just spoke to fellow Rotarian Archie Solomon just a few moments before coming in, and he's recovering. He sounded so good on the phone, you would never know that he had all the issues that he had with his heart surgery. He hopes to be back very, very soon. And so birthdays, got a lot of them today. Some total of one. That's my birthday on March the 11th. Don't let Ken Curtis sit on your table if it's near your birthday. All we heard is how old everybody is. And I first thought he was approaching Jack Collier with that. And because I know the other two on our table are youngsters. But then as it went on, I realized that it was nonstop for me. We may have to speak to Robbie. I know Robbie's back. We're glad to have you back. Are you blurry-eyed with the baby?
He's sleeping through the night.
Okay, great. That's a good thing. I'll speak to you about Ken later. So anniversaries, a little better. Andrew and Sherry Beth on March the 7th. Houston Holmes and Kaylin on March the 8th. And David Hanks and Nancy on March the 10th. I hope you all have a great week. Thank you.
Tom Thrills going to introduce our guests and Houston Rotarian.
Thank you, President Shannon. I hope I don't get anybody's name wrong. This is my first time, okay? Give me a break. We have guests today. Jessica Bollinger is a guest of Campbell Good. Rusty Shaw is a guest of John Brown. Stephen Holliman, guest of Tim Shirley. Susan Bloomberg, and I'm glad to listen to you. Susan is your guest. It's a blessing to me to have her here. Dawn Clenny, a guest of Leslie Bluebird. Tim Godwin, a guest of Dale Godwin, and Jane Bach is a guest of the club. Is any other Mr. Rotarians a guest today? Well, thank you. Let me say I'm welcome Bobby back here. I know some of his stories and they're great.
All right. right, Stephanie, are you ready? So I appreciate Stephanie stepping up to do this. She walked in the door and I asked for help. She said, okay, what do I do? So I appreciate you. Okay, the winning number is 3024. 3024. You know what? I said that wrong. I said she was new. I've been doing this all day. That is the total points, okay? The lucky ticket number is 7336. 7336. Somebody has the opportunity to win 3,024 points.
Man called Jack.
7336.
You sure it's in there? Somebody has, right. There.
Close.
No cigar.
No cigar. Queen of spades. We need the ace.
Yeah.
All right. We have a new website. You guys would check it out. I know there'll be little hiccups. If you'll just let me know what you see that doesn't look just perfect, we will take a look at it. But check out the new website. It's the same address, DothanRotary.com. All right. Linda, we're ready for you to introduce your guest.
Good morning.
Morning.
Certainly Wallace is excited about our production coming up April 7th through April 10th, The Wizard of Oz, and you have a flyer at your table. And leave that with you for a reminder, because we certainly invite all of you to come to the productions. We're just really, really excited about the quality of this and our wonderful, talented students. I know that you know Charles Sermon already. He has a great track record, and he was at Dothan High School for 8 years, and then at Chipola College for 20 years as theater director. And then we were able to convince him to come to Wallace Community College in January of 2020. And so he's been with us a little over 2 years. And we're just really excited to have him at the helm of our theater productions. And he's going to introduce our students.
Thank y'all so much for always having us here. I'm Charles Sermon, Director of Theater. As Dr. Gill mentioned, I started 2 years ago in 2 months, and it's been quite a challenge because of COVID. So we're now out and about, hoping to get back to normality. Who I'm going to show you today is a little sneak peek of what I'm going to show you today is quick. I'm going to let the students introduce themselves, the characters they're playing, and then we'll get right into it because I know you've got a great program. So we'll start right here with Emma. She'll introduce herself and what character she plays. Obviously, you can tell hopefully what she plays. The other three, you got to come see the show because someone won't even fit in the door, and the 10-man, he doesn't get to sit for 3 hours. So we gave him a break. So go ahead.
Hi, I'm Emma. I play Dorothy.
Hi, I'm Michael. I play the Tin Man.
I'm Colby. I play the Scarecrow.
I'm Noah, and I play the Lion.
So we're going to give you a sneak preview. Think about being in the Wallace Theater in another month with full orchestrations, full sets, lightings, 100 costumes, probably over 70 set pieces. Just get ready for a treat. But here's a little sneak peek for you today. Bear with me because I'm running the sound off.
where there is no trouble. It's not a place you can get to by It's far, far away. When all the world is on when all the clouds darken up the skyway, there's a rainbow highway to be found. From your window to a place behind the sun, just a step beyond the red. Somewhere over the rainbow, way up high, there's a land that I heard of once in a lullaby. Somewhere over the rainbow, skies are blue, and the dreams that you dare to dream really do come true. Someday I'll wish upon a star and wake up where the clouds are far behind me. Where troubles melt like lemon drops away above the chimney tops. That's where you'll find me. Somewhere over the rainbow, birds fly. Fly over why can't if happy little birds fly beyond the rainbow, why, oh, why can't I? I don't like this forest. It's dark and creepy.
Of course, I'm not very bright, but I think it'll get darker before it gets lighter.
Do you suppose we'll meet any wild animals?
Maybe.
Oh,
Animals that eat straw?
Some, mostly lions, tigers and bears,
lions.
And tigers.
and bears,
Oh, lions and tigers and bears. Oh my.
lions and tigers and bears,
Oh my.
lions and tigers and bears,
Oh my.
lions and tigers and bears,
Oh my.
lions and tigers and bears.
Look him on, pull him up, put him up. What, are you scared? Come on, I'll fight you with one arm tied behind the back, one foot in the air, both eyes closed. Come on.
Here, you leave us alone.
Yeah, well, how long can you stay fresh in that can? Ah. Well, come on. What have you do? You tin man and you lopsided bag of hay.
That's getting real personal, Lion. Yeah, to teach him a lesson. Well, what's wrong with you, teacher? I hardly know him.
Well, I'll get you anyway. Come on. Oh, what'd you go and do that for? I didn't fight him.
No, but you tried to.
Oh, you hit me real hard. Is my nose bleeding?
No, of course not. My goodness, what a fuss you're making. Naturally, when you go around picking on things bigger than you are, why, you're nothing but a great big coward.
Oh, you're right. I ain't got no courage at all. I even scare myself. I mean, just look at the bags under my eyes. I haven't slept in weeks.
Why don't you try counting sheep?
Oh, that doesn't work. I'm afraid of them.
That's too bad. Why don't you come along with us? We're on our way to see the wizard now to get him a heart and brain.
I'm sure he can give you some courage.
Oh, you wouldn't be discouraged by having the company of a cowardly lion?
No, of course not.
Well, that would be wonderful. You see, my life has just been miserable ever since I was a little cub. My father took me to the top of the highest mountain and waved his paw over the land and said, "One day this will all be yours." I was terrified.
Why is that?
I'm afraid of heights.
Oh, well, it's all right now. The wizard will fix everything.
I don't know, but if I go with you, you'll be safe.
Well, how's that?
Well, no self-respecting animal would come anywhere near me.
We're off to see the wizard, a wonderful wizard.
He is a wizard, if ever a wizard was. Ever a wizard was the Wizard of Oz. Because of the wonderful things he does.
We're off to see the wizard, the wonderful Wizard of Oz.
Thank you, guys. It's gonna be a great show. I don't want to miss it. Josh, ready for your announcement?
I'm sure everyone's seen now, we sent out a couple emails and I made an announcement last week, but we have John Jam coming up this Saturday at the plant. The gates open at noon, the chili cook-off and the band start at 2. And it'll last till probably about 8 o'clock on Saturday night. Thank you all, Dothan Rotary, for your support, for your sponsorships and whatnot. We'd love to hope to see some of you out there on Saturday. So just a friendly reminder, that's coming up. Thank you.
Thank you, Josh. And we are, as a club, going to be in the chili cook-off. And so if you can help with that, we're gonna get together right after the meeting, maybe around the piano. So if you can help with the chili cook-off for Dothan Rotary Club, just join us at the piano. Okay. We have some people that we want to recognize. So, Jeannie, are you ready? If I call your name, would you please come up front? Jack Collier, Jerry Atkinson, Terry Duffy, Jason Rudd, and Mike Azar. And Tim McCraney and Michael Maddox. All right. Becoming a Paul Harris Fellow is a tremendous accomplishment and honor. The award is named in honor of Rotary's founder, Paul Harris, and is a recognition of supporting the Rotary Foundation by a contribution of $1,000. Contributions can be made to honor others. And you have heard me say this, but I think it's worth repeating for those that may not know. The gifts help provide for the construction of wells, vaccinations, meals, education, and professional opportunities to children and adults. So today, these gentlemen are Paul Harris Fellows Plus. which just signifies that they go above and beyond repeatedly in doing good. And they will probably never even get to meet the people that have benefited from the things that they do. So I want to thank you all for what you do. I want to thank you for the way that you serve this club and you serve other people. And it's truly an honor to know you and to serve with you. So let's congratulate them on this accomplishment. I also would like to ask Anthony Howard, if you would just stand, please. We want to just introduce you to the club. Anthony is transferring to our club from Blakely. And I see he's already got his badge. So he's been visiting with us for 2 or 3 weeks now. And so we didn't have to do an official induction of him, but we want to let you see who he is and welcome him. And at the end of the meeting, if you would maybe just go out in the hall and let everybody shake hands with you and introduce themselves. Thank you for joining us. All right, Bruce, if you would come forward, and Demetrius and your wife. It's our duty as members of Dothan Rotary Club to add new members so we can continue to serve as a club. And we want to welcome Demetrius Bowman today and his wife. And Bruce, I think you were going to introduce him to the club.
Well, thank you. It is my great pleasure to introduce to you Demetrius Bowman as our newest member of the Dothan Rotary Club. Demetrius was born in Birmingham, but he was raised in Greenville, Alabama. He did attend Auburn University, Montgomery, the Alabama Fire College. He has firefighter certifications, a fire instructor one, and a paramedic license. So we have a little bit to talk about when we first met. Demetrius has been with the Alabama Bureau of Investigation since 2010, which makes 12 years. So he's a special agent in Region B, and that encompasses some 10 counties in Alabama. It does a lot of internal investigations and probably some secret stuff we don't need to know about. He's married to his wife, Jane. They have a 3-year-old daughter, and then they have a 16-year-old son who's just received some awards with his ROTC. And of course, he's in Greenville at the present time. In addition to his special agent position, which is full-time, by the way, he does have a business, Apex Commercial Janitorial Solutions, that he's been operating since 2016. He has some 30 employees and 4 support staff. So obviously, Demetrius is a pretty busy guy. His business does a lot of commercial properties, primarily in Dothan and Houston County, but he actually has one, I think, one business he serves in Montgomery, Alabama. So obviously, he's a busy man with a family, a job, and a career. And guess what, Bob? He's got time for Rotary. How about that?
All right. So we'll turn around and here's your 4-way plaque. His badge, and then you were going to ask Jane, I believe. And I'll just make a few remarks while that's going on, and she'll be pinning you while Jane is doing that. And Bruce, you've been elected to membership with the club because we believe that you possess the abilities to serve and represent Rotary, that you possess the right qualities to be a Rotarian. You've been admitted not only to the Dothan Club, but Rotary International, so you'll be welcome in Rotary clubs wherever you travel. And then also there are duties and obligations that you'll be called on to perform according to your knowledge and talents. So we appreciate you already for what you're bringing to the club. And I now formally admit you to our club. And at the end of the meeting, if you would stand in the hall with Bruce, let everyone meet you and your wife and introduce themselves. We're happy to have you. So let's welcome Demetrius Bowman to our club. Thank you, Bruce. Okay, we're ready now for Cal to introduce our speaker, Cal Whaley.
All right, good afternoon. It's my pleasure to introduce our speaker this afternoon, our retired Special Agent Bobby Hamil. I will warn you, this is a known cohort of Mr. Robert Rutter, so take that for what it's worth. Mr. Hamil is a graduate of Headland High School. He went on to earn an undergraduate degree from the University of Alabama, as well as a law degree from Birmingham School of Law. After law school, he returned to Headland and practiced with Halstead and Whitten before embarking on a 25-year career as a special agent with the FBI. After retiring from the Bureau in 2008, he served as the police chief and director of public safety at Clayton State University near Atlanta for the next 10 years. 2018, he returned to his hometown of Headland, busied himself as a campaign chair for the Henry County United Way, a part-time substitute teacher, and a Sunday school teacher. In July of 21, he became the staff attorney for Sarcoa Area Agency on Aging in Dothan. And he is happily married to his wife of 39 years, Michelle. They have 2 daughters, a son-in-law, and a 1.5-year-old grandson. Please help me welcome Mr. Bobby Hamil.
Thanks, Cal. I don't think I could have said it better myself. That was a wonderful introduction. A little hyped, but I'll take it. This is a pretty humbling experience. I'm used to speaking before Baptist senior centers, retired Henry County teachers, other groups that, not belittling them, but the numbers usually are a little bit smaller than this. But it's a real honor. And I was surprised how many people that I recognize here. Part of it's because I'm old and I'm from this area. So, but I go places, my daughter, she and her husband moved back here from Atlanta about a year ago. She said, you know everybody. I said, well, I lived there forever. Even though I was away for 30-something years, when a lot of people did move. And it may take a little while for us to recognize each other, but usually once the mouth's open, you can identify them, not necessarily from physical appearance, from what they sound like. So, but a few people said, Bob and I we both go to Headland Methodist Church. So if I succeed or fail, Bob's to blame. So if he sneaks out back before I'm done, you'll know probably didn't go too well. Tom Sorrell sitting behind him. The few years I practiced here, Tom was the DA. And my dad, some of you probably, if you've been around a while, I probably knew my dad, different names, so it won't register with me. Durrell Whitten was my dad. He died about a year ago, but he practiced law in Headland for nearly 60 years. And he was part-time assistant DA with Tom and probably every other DA before Tom. One quick story, since you could dwell on one topic, when I could dwell on your time practicing law, the FBI, but I'll try to hit a couple of areas. I don't want to go, you put a lawyer before a mic and you might have to pull the plug to turn them off. So if you have to do it, I'll understand. But I was practicing law with Tom and with my dad and Charles Woodham, and I was doing some of the part-time assistant DA work too, and they were trying a murder case, and I hadn't been there long, and I had done a lot of the research, getting them prepped for the case, and my dad and Dura and Tom were doing all the questioning of witnesses. I was just there taking notes, and following along with them. And then if you know criminal trials, in the closing arguments, the prosecutor gets 2 shots at the jury. They get to open the closing, then the defense attorney comes, then they get the closing. So my dad looked at me and says, Bobby, how about you getting up and opening the closing? No forewarning whatsoever. And I'd never been fortunate. And I just sat there stunned. Well, I got up and I did. I had no idea what I said. Obviously I didn't fail because the guy ended up getting convicted. But when it was over, I said, why didn't you give me some forewarning? He said, well, then you'd have been nervous as a tick. You probably would have stumbled all over yourself. He said, plus I knew Tom would clean up any mistakes you made when he, which I'm sure he did. But yeah, working with my dad and Tom, these are some of the finest people in the legal community, as I'm sure you all well know. Well, first of all, my major accomplishments, as Cal alluded to, is married to my wife for nearly 40 years, same wife, which is in this day and age, that's kind of astonishing in itself. 2 daughters, one, she's a lawyer, and brought me a little grandbaby about a year and a half ago. She works, this is the new age, she works for a firm in Atlanta, but she works remotely. So they moved back, they love the area here, so they moved back to Headland like we did. She works remotely, and her husband's in the IT field, he does too. My other daughter, I don't know what happened to her, but she lives in Chicago working at DePaul University. She likes the cold weather and the big city. So, but bless her heart, she's doing a good job and having a good time too. And my dad, my dad being a fine man and a great lawyer in the area, could have had better racing. But how I got interested in the FBI, I was in Dawn Clenny. We never worked together, but Dawn was one of the first FBI agents I ever met. She went out a couple of years ahead of me. She's from Abbeville. Our mothers, again, the small town area, our mothers were county health nurses together for years. So that's how we knew each other. But I remember she came in our office in Abbeville one time after she'd been in the bureau. And I said, well, how do you like it? And she said, I love it. And she was in Detroit. I said, well, the job must be good because I can't imagine you like it living in Detroit from Abbeville, Alabama. So she sort of planted the seed, but it really got planted out. When I was in law school, I went to law school at night and did various jobs during the day. My last year or so, I clerked for Bill Baxley's Attorney General's office. He had a little annex in Birmingham, probably still does. It was a small office, nothing like the one in Montgomery. He had 3 or 4 attorneys and 3 or 4 law clerks. Well, 2 of the other law clerks with me were Doug Valeska and Larry Anderson. Y'all know both of those folks here. Larry wasn't even a lawyer. He was just a college student at the time, but he's a friend of the Baxley family. So Doug pretty much took it under his wing that Larry would be his law clerk. So when I came back here and saw Larry as a judge and Doug as a DA, and I get together with both of them quite a bit back in the early days early years when I moved back home. And I'd say, Larry, don't you just get a lot of relish out of gigging Doug for all what he made you do as his lackey? And he got a grin. I said, yeah, I sure do. But good folks, and we had a great time those couple of years working together in Baxter's office in Birmingham. But the way I got interested in the bureau, Bill was up there one time in my last semester or so of law school, and he asked us, what are you law clerks going to be doing when you get out of law school? Well, being real forward-thinking young man, we didn't have a clue. We said, I guess we'll look for a job. None of us really knew what we wanted to do. And he said, have any of you ever thought of the FBI? And we looked at each other, no. Did they hire lawyers? No. Well, we thought of maybe military or police would roll into that, not lawyers. He said, well, I think they do hire lawyers. So I made the call to the office in Birmingham, and I remember fairly vividly. One of the long call. And this lady answered the phone. I said, I'm in law clerk here in the Attorney General's office in Birmingham. And somebody said, or our boss said, I think I used Bill's name, said that you guys might be hiring lawyers. And here's what the lady said. I may have a paraphrase probably. She says, yes, but you don't sound like what we're hiring right now. And I didn't know if it was racial, ethnicity, or gender. I kind of thought it was gender because we were trying to have a more diverse field back then. But she was very polite. She said, but stay tuned. We do hire, a wide range of backgrounds every now and then. So I didn't give it a whole lot of thought to. And then so I went back home, practiced law a couple of years, and then I see an advertisement that they are hiring about 2 years later. And I'd already had my little account with Dawn, and Dawn gave it a good plug. So I said, what the heck? I said, my fear in the bureau was following Dawn's lead, going up some cold, frigid climate up north. I said, I don't know if I could deal with Buffalo or Minneapolis, Detroit. I'm Southern born and bred. That'd be maybe at least let me go somewhere warm for a while. So, and I was fortunate. I went to Houston, my first office, which climate was pretty similar here. So I felt like I had, I fared all right. And actually, in my whole career, the only time I lived in cold weather was in DC and West Virginia and a little bit in Seattle, sort of cold. But I put in for all those jobs, so I had no one to blame but myself.
but and the FBI, you go through, I think now it's like 6 month training course at Quantico before you go, they cut you loose. They give you a weapon and a couple of bullets and turn you loose on the field. And my roommate, you're paired with people from all backgrounds. My roommate was from Nutley, New Jersey, and I'm from Headland, Alabama. And he literally said, Joyce, you think it's TV, but that's the way this guy talked. He had that hard Jersey accent. So for a while, we had to have somebody broker our conversations. But we got along great. He's a good friend. In fact, every now and then we'll still reach out and chat with each other. So my first office being Houston, and back then, it's probably still now, whatever they assign you to first, it's going to be a training office. You're going to work this and that and different stuff. Well, I get to Houston, and the first thing I thought of was not, I wonder if I'm going to work bank robberies. I wonder if I'm going to work counterintelligence or chase mortgage fraudsters. My thought was, there's a guy from Headland that plays with the Houston Oilers, who was a pro football team back in '83. And I'd love to be able to reach out to him and see if I get football tickets. So see where my priorities were when I first landed in Houston. I said, but I feel stupid. I don't know the guy. His name was Willie Tullis. Some of you, if you follow football, probably heard his name. And I didn't know him. He's a little younger than me, but I said, there can't be too many other folks from Headland out here in Houston, Texas, and he might like to hear, somebody from his hometown's voice. So, but I couldn't think of any cool way to reach out to Willie Tullis and say, hey, we're from the same hometown. You don't have to have any extra tickets for sale. That was pretty defaulted. So I couldn't think of anything, but I was telling all my squad mates about this story, how it'd be nice to be able to reach out to him. So one day I came in, and I'd only been there a few months, and there's a case lead sitting on my desk that says it was a Mercedes auto theft ring out of Chicago. And it said, contact Houston Oilers football player Willie Tullis. See if he's in possession of this little canary yellow Mercedes convertible, VIN number such and such. If so, contact Chicago and seize it promptly. I'm thinking, I thought it was a joke because I've been talking up trying to figure a way to reach out to this guy. This can't be happening. So I go in my boss's office and he basically throws me out. He says, I don't make up leads, handle it. I said, what a coincidence. This is the guy who's trying to reach, for personal reasons. Now I got to contact him for business. So I called up Willie Tullis, and he was very nice on the phone. I said, hey, first of all, I'm FBI, but I'm also from your hometown. You don't happen to have a canary yellow Mercedes convertible? I was kind of hoping he'd say no, and then we could roll into football talk. But he said, well, yeah, actually I do. I have one that fits that description. I just bought it a few weeks ago and bought it from a place called International Motors, which I already knew was famous for selling hot cars. And I said, well, I need to come out. Do you have your bill of sale? I have a bill of sale. I need to come out and take a look at it. So I carried a senior investigator with me. He used to work with the Texas Rangers and was highly skilled in auto theft investigation. He goes out with me, and we can spot the car from the freeway. It is the brightest yellow I think I'd ever seen sitting in this little condo parking lot. So we pull up there, and Willie comes out. He meets us. He shows us his bill of sale. Said, well, let's check the vehicle. So we had the VIN number for the stolen one in our case file. So we look in the logical places. We look on the dashboard. There's a VIN number. It doesn't match the stolen one. Say, all right, we're going to be okay. I'm going to make the contact and not take the car. So Royce, my partner, said, well, there's a few other places. You mind opening the door? Check the door jamb. We check it. It matched the one in the window. Still not the stolen. He said, would you mind popping the hood? There's one on the engine. I said, I'm thinking, okay. Third time should be a charm. It wasn't the same one on the engine block. And then Royce, in his experienced way, says, there's one other place that the bad guys often won't change the VIN number. He said, would you mind opening the trunk? So Willie opens the trunk. I had no idea where he's going to look. Royce pulls out his little dentist mirror, and it's solely for this purpose, to look in places that you can't see with the naked eye or without being a contortionist. And behind the hinges in the trunk, there's a VIN number back there. Lo and behold, that one was the original, never been altered. So I saw him. So now we got to take his car. Willie was extremely gracious, and he had his bill of sale and it looked legit to me.
So we call our friendly record to come, and I remember the record was a bright orange record. It's hauling, going off into the sunset with this yellow car looking like a sunburst taking off from the apartment complex. But I said, I'm not, Willie seems to be an innocent buyer here. So I went with him back to International Motors. Said, okay, here's what happened. You guys sold him a stolen car, because they give us this they're singing and dancing as well as you guys did a while ago about how they buy them in a fleet. They don't always they keep check everything. Anyway, they wrote him a check back, a certified check for the total amount he paid for it right there before. So we got all his money back. So I didn't have the heart of asking about football tickets at this point. So a few days later, he calls me and he thanked me for helping him getting his money back. And I said, yes, please I could do. And I said, you find another? Yeah, I got another car. Bought it at Star Motors. It's just as much car. I sure hope this doesn't come back. And then, boy, I said, well, I'm glad you got another car. He said, and this was like the first football game of the season was a week away. They were playing the defending world champion of Super Bowl, Oakland Raiders, who had Kenny Stabler, and they had Houston had Warren Moon, White Shoes Johnson. Remember, they had Bum Phillip, they had a colorful team, and there was no tickets. He said, "Had for it." He says, "Do you like football?" I said, "Yeah, I like football. Would you like to come to our first game? I've got a couple of tickets." You could have knocked me over that. I said, well, yeah, but you can't give them to me, I know ethics. But he said, that's fine, I'll leave them at will call and you can pay there and they'll have the tickets for you. So my wife and I go to will call. We wait, there are no tickets. We wait. And the guy that works there, he says, sometimes the runners forget to bring their tickets. So here, I've got a couple back here. I'll sell them to you. Nobody's picked them up. So then I didn't know what to, Willie calls me the next day. He's defensive back, starter, good ball player. How'd you like the game? I said, well, it was great, but tickets didn't show up. He was madder about that than he was about his car getting towed away. So he was all upset about the runners at the game for Lions. Anyway, we went to a couple more games that year. He always goes to the apartment, buy the tickets from him there to make sure we had a good transfer. But that was like my first big case in the bureau, and it was a guy from hometown. And I thought it was pretty cool and real coincidental. And I haven't, since we moved back, I keep hoping I'll run into Willie so we can refresh the memories of the Mercedes case. So after that, though, like I said, your first office is generally a training office, and Dawn spends her whole career in Detroit. I move all over the country. I don't know if people think I'm running from creditors or what's the reason, but I had like 10 moves in 25 years. Part of it I got in management, and you have to move around to move up there. But I was on a squad that worked a lot of organized crime, and it was traditional organized crime mostly. But Asian organized crime was becoming a big issue there in the Houston area. And they had some Korean cases, they had Vietnamese, and you had Chinese cases. Well, they had this operation going on down, and they had a strip of what they called the modeling studios in Houston, but they were all just prostitution joints, is what they were. And they were retired military guy and his Korean wife owned them, and it was all Korean women. And the way they ran it was recruiting girls through the military. Either after they married GIs and bases in Korea and moved back here, or they actually set up marriage brokers near some of the bases in Korea, and they would entice, they'd set them up kind of like a dating service, hoping that they would get married. And then when they got in the country, the women would either knowingly or unknowingly get snared into the prostitution network. So I could spend the whole time talking about that, but I ended up, instead of having a training office working a lot of stuff, I worked that for most of the couple of years I was in Houston. Great case, travel around the country, brought in a lot of former workers there. Their broken English, it's a little tough in grand jury, but we got them through and ended up getting the operations, the studio shut down. But then, so after that, back then you go to a big office after you spend a couple of years in your training office. Mine was San Francisco. So I get there, and I was interested in the Asian work, having worked this case, but I knew it would really help if I could speak a little of the language. And I had 1 year of Spanish in high school, and my teacher did, so that's my extent of foreign language.
So I said, I'd like to take an Asian language, and language schools in Monterey, California. And I've been to the military, might have been out there at the Defense Language Institute. And so they had vacancies for upcoming class in 3 Asian languages: Korean, Vietnamese, and Chinese. And the recruiter, when I took a little series of tests and qualified, she said, which one would you like to take? And I knew they're all gonna be hard. I said, you know, at least if I fail, it won't be bad, because I can barely speak English coming from South Alabama going. So I said, well, I'd like to take Chinese. She said, well, didn't you work Korean case the last couple of years? I said, yeah, here's my logic, but I like Chinese food better. That's what I told her. I said, I don't like kimchi. I've eaten enough of it. It's awful. And I'm not crazy about soup. So I don't want to take Vietnamese. So I said, I like it. And so I did. And the first week of it was, you know, I said, what have I got myself into? You know, well, you know, the Asian languages, they don't use Roman alphabets. You get characters and you get tones. So it's real challenging, but I had a friend who had been there ahead of me, and he kind of coached me how. He said, first of all, you're in Monterey, California. You know, there's enough incentive to study hard right there, and you're getting paid to go to language school, and everything is covered there. So you get to learn a language on the government's dime. And with all that in mind, you know, I just put my nose to the grindstone and studied hard. I was there for 2.5 years. It's 1 year basic course. I was able to parlay into a 2nd year intermediate, and then a 6-month advanced course where I was the only student, just a different teacher every hour for 6 months. Then I rolled back out to San Francisco, where I was going to continue working Asian matters, primarily Chinese. The first interview I had, I went out with a guy, he's Chinese by birth, but he didn't speak any Chinese. It was Peter Wan, and he was working I think it was a bank fraud case. But he was going to interview a Chinese guy who didn't speak English. And so Peter says, and he was a witness, so it wasn't a controversial interview. Bobby, would you go out and help me interview this guy? I don't speak Chinese. He doesn't speak English. You speak Chinese. I said, Peter, you know what this is going to look like. So we go, I don't care. You can do it. So I did. I'm sitting there. So Peter, the Chinese agent, asking me the questions in English. I'm asking the witness, who's Chinese and doesn't speak English, the questions in Chinese. He's responding to me in Chinese. I'm responding to the Chinese guy. And I mean, it's like candy. The guy kept, in a minute, he looked around. He thought, this can't be happening. You know? And he asked me the question. He looked like me. And it turned out to be a real comic event in the end, but we got through it. And my first Chinese interview was brokered between a non-speaking Chinese American and a guy natural born China. But anyway, so I worked Chinese matters for the next few years in San Francisco. You know, so it's like a lot of languages. If you don't use it, you lose it. You know, eventually I moved away from that area. I got into management. Had worked, you cover a little everything. Couple other things let me hit on, and then I'll want to open up for questions, so I don't get carried away too long. But one interesting little encounter. I was a supervisor in Las Vegas. Probably my favorite assignment, because every bad guy comes to Vegas, so you can work everything in Vegas because they're all there, you know, at some point. I mean, bank robberies happen every day, and there's either drugs or alcohol or short on money, and usually they're stupid. They get caught pretty quick. But I was there one morning, about 8 o'clock in the morning, and sitting there drinking my coffee. Well, the day before in LA, they had this big event. This is 98 or 99, I forget which year. This is one of the first big active shooter incidents that happened in LA the day before. This guy named Buford Fuhrer, F-U-R-R-O-W. You want to Google it after, just read a little more about him. He was a white supremacist from up in Washington State, had traveled down to LA. He joined all Aryan nations and all the other white supremacist groups up in the Northwest. And his view, they're all just talk, a lot of rhetoric. Nobody's doing anything. Well, I'm sick and tired of it. When he's lone wolves, I'm going to go out and make a statement. So he travels down to LA. He thought about hitting a couple of places en route, but they seem to be a little tighter in security. So he finds a Jewish community center there, and he walks in and with automatic weapons and just sprays indiscriminately about 70 or 80 rounds. Fortunately, it hit 2 people, but sadly, it hit 2. a counselor and a 5-year-old boy. 5-year-old boy was paralyzed for life. And then he leaves, and then he walks out and he encounters a postal worker who's Asian descent, shoots, kills him. He gets in his van, drives a little ways, dumps it, and then he finds he works his way to some little Fleabag motel and checks in. He carjacked. He had a carjacking and he gets to this little motel. Stays there for a few hours, and then about 9 or 10 at night, he says, I probably should get out of LA. This is, he's not watching the news, but he's probably thinking they might have identified, because he left his van. His van had arsenal of weapons and IDs in it. So he hails a cab, calls a cab from the motel, says, hey, how much does it take me to Las Vegas from Los Angeles? It's quite a hike. The guy said, well, I can do it, but you don't want to fly? No, I'd rather go by cab. I'll pay you. He said, like $700. So the cabbie drops him off. It's about dawn when he gets in Las Vegas. So he shows up about dawn. This again, not the Bellagio or the Mirage, some little small motel. Checks in, and he goes in. And it's 7 in the morning. Turns on TV. He's all over it. Everything is looking for him. They had him identified, had his picture, and cabbie didn't recognize him because cabbie probably had not seen the news that night. He'd been on the road all night. So Buford then goes up front, hails a local cab. He asks the guy, says, hey, and this is right 7 to 8 o'clock. I'm already in the office. He says, you know where the FBI office is in Las Vegas? He said, well, yeah, about a mile down the road. Well, I'm not taking you there. I said, okay. And en route, he says, hey, you drink coffee? Well, yeah, I'm a cabbie. Of course I drink coffee. Well, this is Starbucks stuff. I'm not supposed to come. This is a guy the whole world's looking for, and the cabbie has no clue. And he's talking like he's going in for a job interview or something. Stops, goes in, gets them both Starbucks. After that was it. Starbucks could have said, even the back. They could have used this for a PR moment. The bad guys love our coffee. So he comes in I said, I'm sitting, so now we go fast forward. I'm sitting at my desk, reading morning mail and drinking my coffee. And we had a security officer up front. And he calls me, says, Bobby, says, you'll never guess who just walked in our office. And I'm in Vegas, so what I say, who? Elvis? That's the logic. He was a nice guy, and we were just goofing with him. He says, no, Buford Bureau. And my coffee went about 3 feet across the desk, spewing out, because I knew who it was, because we don't watch the news. So I go running up to the front, grab the first agent I passed, come with me, and we go up and we're looking through the one-way mirror, and he's sitting there in the lobby reading one of our little coffee table books like he's in for a job interview or something. This is a guy, the whole world's looking for. He just shot up a community center and killed a postal worker. So I walk out, I just said, I said, yeah, I think you guys are looking for me, which was a tremendous understatement. He didn't have any weapons. We took him back. Our day changed. It's just like a lot of organizations' days can change on a dime, and FBI is no exception. So for the rest of the day, obviously we had an interview room. He explained it just as nonchalant as if he's talking about applying for a job. I just these are my beliefs, and I'm fed up with all this rhetoric. Something's got to be done. Just as with no emotion, just hard listening to stuff like that. And then to cut to the chase, late that night, he was transported back to LA. He ended up getting tried, and he pled to life in prison, so to avoid more serious consequences. But he's actually still in jail. I looked him up a few months ago. He's probably in his 80s now, but he got two life imprisonments with life terms without parole, plus just for good measure, they do another 130 years on. So he'll never get out. Just a few years ago, he finally repented, said he was wrong in his viewpoints. It took him 20 years to come to that. But that's just, and I watch TV something every now and then. And there's 3 FBI shows on TV back to back to back. And I don't know why there's so many of them. We get such a bad rap all the time, but people like to watch FBI shows. And somebody once asked me, is the FBI really like they're portrayed in TV and in movies? I said, no, we do smile sometimes. But in the last few years, you follow the news. And I worked in a unit at FBI headquarters in the legal unit for a couple of years, and we produced and reviewed and processed a lot of FISAs, Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act warrants. That acronym was never known outside of federal legal circles until just a few years ago. And now, if you follow a lot of the current events going on during the Trump administration, you probably are familiar with the term. But so reviewed a lot of that. It was fascinating work. I was a supervisor in Las Vegas, field agent for several years. I was a field agent half my career, and then management the last half. So hopefully it gave me some credibility when I got into management. My complaint was always you'd see people get into management too quick because they wanted to just have these lofty aspirations, but you can usually see through it by talking to them by how much credibility they have when they're 3 years out and then they're supervisors. So, but I had a good career. Dawn and I get together occasionally. I think we both look back and we don't have any regrets. I made the right career for me. I enjoyed it. I spent 25 years there. I retired. Could have hung on a couple of more for mandatory retirements, but we were living in West Virginia. My oldest daughter was wanting to go to school at either Alabama or Auburn. I'm an Alabama grad. My wife's an Auburn family, so it didn't matter to me. Whichever one's just worked out best for us. So I knew though we'd have to move back here, closer to home, because my wife would stay that far away from her daughter. And it worked out good because then my dad's health started going down. So we lived in Atlanta. I could come back and forth quite a bit to see him. And then I rolled into another job at the university near Atlanta as a police chief and public safety director for 10 years. It went by in a blur. There's another meeting of stories I could tell, but had a great time, both those careers. Retired, moved back to Heaven. 2 years into retirement, I realized I couldn't do anything productive at the house except get my wife's way. If I tried to fix something, somebody else has got to come and undo my fixing because I'm not a real good handyman. And I did the substitute teaching, and that was my sisters are teachers. They said, you need to see what our job is like. Why don't you substitute teach? My first day substituting was at Girard, and it was a 4th grade. It was the longest work day of my natural life. It was who could yell the loudest, me or the kids? And they had them and no disrespect to any teachers, especially if any of you teach at Girard, but they had them in a U-shaped table, no individual chairs. So they're kicking and pawing constantly the whole time. This is the first day of subbing. And it was awful. And I got home and my wife said, well, I hear your voice. I said, well, you should have been with me all day. But then I said, oh, I'll give it another shot. So then I started subbing. I never had another day like that. That was just a real anomaly, I guess. But I had a blast subbing. It was fun for 2 years. You're really kind of a glorified babysitter because you're not there long. I did have the Headland principal. I was subbing for a high school about a year ago, and I get a call over the intercom from Jason Bradford, the principal. He said, Mr. Hamill, would you mind coming to the office at your next break? And I'm thinking, I haven't been called to the office since I was a student here. What am I getting? And he wanted to know if I wanted to be a full-time. So I said, I appreciate it. I like my part-time occasional gigs. But it was a blast. I know they loved it because it's former FBI, it's kind of cool. They'd always want to ask me questions. And I would in turn ask them some. I remember asking you always like to hear, what do you want to be? Whether it's a 6th grader, a 9th grader, a senior. And I get, you should know, I should know better than to ask questions I don't know the answers for, because you never know what's going to come out of the mouths of babes. But I remember hearing him one time ask this kid, I said, what do you want to be when you grow up, little girl? She says, I want to be a bartender at a strip joint when I'm in college. I said, well, that's kind of weird. Why? Because they get paid more than regular bartenders, and it'll help my nursing career. I said, well, that's a good answer. Then another one, I said, none of them want to be FBI. So I want to be a doctor. A lot of them want to be doctors, nurses. I said, why not? And then she said, wait a minute, no. I want to marry my boyfriend and be a stay-home mom. I said, you're only in the 6th grade. And she gave me this smile. I just moved on to another question. But it was a hoot. I had a blast doing it. But I did want to get back into the real world, doing something that
felt like might be a little more productive, maybe use my mind before it totally turned to rust or mush, whichever happened first. So a friend of mine on the library board suggested that I apply for the job in Sarcoa, and I've been there since July, and I love it. If you're not familiar with Sarcoa, it's the Southern Alabama Regional Council on Aging. Their overarching goal is to keep old folks like me and one or two of you at home as long as possible, out of nursing homes, and they do a great job. So they have some phenomenal programs. They have passionate staff. So I'm just glad that they allowed me to join. I've been there since July and still there, so it's a lot of fun. So I'll probably close it at that, and let me open up for questions. Anybody has, hit me with them. If I can't answer it, I'll bob and weave. If I can, I'll do the best I can.
We certainly thank you, Bobby, for coming, and we appreciate everything you had to say. Really enjoyed it. I think we are needing to wrap up on time though, but if you can stay around, maybe you can fill some of those questions. I really enjoyed having you. Thank you for being here. Next week, so with the Anthony, did you already slip out? You want to slip out and just let everybody speak to you? And I believe Bruce already did. Next week, Dr. Young is bringing us the program, and Dwight Gamble will be here, and also John McMillan, who is the Executive Director of the Alabama Medical Cannabis Commission. So next week's program will be very interesting. I want to thank you guests and visiting Rotarians for being here. And if you would, let's stand and do our four-way test. Of the things that we think, say, or do, is it the truth? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill and better friendships? Will it be beneficial to all concerned? Have a good week.